A carbon steel kitchen knife, forged properly and maintained with a $10 Whetstone, holds an edge sharp enough to cut paper for over a century. The same knife, used every single day, sharpened once a month, stropped on leather once a week, does not dull. It does not rust beyond repair. It does not break. It does not need to be thrown away. Your great-grandmother owned one paring knife, one chef's knife, one bread knife, maybe a cleaver, 4 blades. That was the entire kitchen. Those 4 knives were bought once, sometimes handed down from her own mother, and maintained by hand for 60, 70, 80 years. The carbon steel was dark, almost black, in places where it had reacted with acidic food. The wooden handle was smoothed by decades of a human hand. The edge was maintained by a stone the size of a bar of soap that lived in the drawer beside it. When she died, her daughter inherited them. They still cut. Today, the average American kitchen drawer contains between 8 and 15 knives. A 6-piece knife block, a stick knife set, a paring knife, a utility knife, a bread knife, a boning knife, a serrated tomato knife. Most of them are dull within 18 months. Most are replaced within 5 years. All of them were designed that way. Before 1940, this was not how knives worked. A knife was a lifetime tool. Sharpening was a 10-minute weekly practice, taught by every mother to every daughter, in every kitchen in America. Then, in the span of 30 years, an entire industry was built on making you forget that practice. The American cutlery and kitchen knife industry generates over $12 billion a year in the United States alone. Globally, the number exceeds $22 billion. A single company, Whetstone, sells over 1.5 million knives a year in the United States. Henkel sells more. Cuisinart, Farberware, Chicago Cutlery, and dozens of other brands push millions more into American kitchens every 12 months. The average American household now spends between $75 and $300 every 5 to 7 years on new kitchen knives. That includes the knife block replacement, the individual knife replacements, the specialty knives purchased for single uses, and the electric sharpeners sold alongside them. A basic 6-piece knife block costs between $100 and $200. A mid-range set runs $300 to $500. A premium set can exceed $1,000. The industry's own data shows that the average consumer replaces a knife block every 6 years. Over a 50-year adult life, that is 8 knife blocks. Between $800 and $8,000 on blades that your great-grandmother maintained for free with a Whetstone. Then there is the electric sharpener, a $40 countertop device that removes a significant amount of steel from the blade on every pass. Used weekly, a quality knife is ground down to a stub within 3 years. The industry calls this product maintenance. It is mechanically accelerated destruction. The dull blade problem that an electric sharpener pretends to solve is the same dull blade problem it creates. The $12 Depression era alternative has no replacement cycle. No store loyalty program. No limited edition chef collaboration. No upgraded Damascus pattern for next year's kitchen. It has a rectangle of stone. It has a strip of leather. It has steel that is harder than stainless and sharpens to a finer edge. It lasts a century. The reason you do not already know this is not because the old method stopped working. It is because a $12 billion industry cannot exist if you do. Every knife block you buy is a replacement for a skill that was taught in every American kitchen for 200 years. The entire business model depends on one thing, that you never sit down with a Whetstone and discover how easy it is. In 1921, a Sheffield-trained metallurgist named Harry Brearley's stainless steel formula reached American industrial kitchens. By 1930, stainless cutlery was being marketed as modern and sanitary. Carbon steel was reframed, in a decade of department store catalogs, as old-fashioned, primitive, a holdover from the frontier era that a respectable post-war housewife should retire. There was only one problem with that story. Stainless steel is softer than carbon steel at every comparable price point. It does not hold an edge as long. It does not take an edge as fine. The metallurgy is not opinion. It is measurable. The Rockwell hardness of a standard carbon steel kitchen knife is between 58 and 62. The Rockwell hardness of mid-grade stainless is between 52 and 56. A softer blade dulls faster. A softer blade bends at the edge. A softer blade requires more frequent replacement. That was the point. Between 1954 and 1969, the American cutlery industry shifted almost entirely to stainless. Carbon steel knives, which had been the default in every hardware store in the country, were pushed to the back shelves and then removed. By 1975, finding a carbon steel chef's knife in a mainstream American department store was nearly impossible. The Sears catalog, which had sold carbon steel blades since 1894, phased them out quietly, not banned outright. Just never stocked again after the new buyers came in. The sharpening knowledge went with them. Home economics curricula in American public schools included knife, sharpening as a standard unit through 1958. By 1970, it was gone from the textbooks. The Betty Crocker Picture Cookbook, first published in 1950, included a full page on whetstone use. The 1978 edition removed it. The 1990 edition did not mention sharpening at all. The financial motivation was simple. A customer who sharpens her knives buys one knife every 40 years. A customer who does not sharpen buys one every 5. The industry needed the second customer, so the industry stopped teaching her how to be the first. The Japanese knife industry provides the control experiment. In Japan, where carbon steel blades and waterstone sharpening are still the cultural default, a quality knife is expected to last 3 generations. The Siki City knife makers have been using the same design since 1337. Those blades are still in family kitchens 680 years later. The chemistry works. The economics work. The only country where the skill was lost is the country where the largest cutlery industry built its entire profit model on you losing it, not banned outright. Just erased from every home economics textbook written after 1968. The system has 3 components. Every one of them is available for under $15 combined at any hardware store in any state. Here is exactly what each one does, how it works, and how to use it. Component 1, the whetstone. Asterisk, a whetstone is a rectangular block of abrasive material, usually aluminum oxide or silicon carbide, bonded into a hard shape that can be wetted with water or oil. A double-sided combination stone, coarse on one side and fine on the other, costs between $10 and $15 at any hardware store. A basic Norton or Smith stone can be found in the knife section of a Home Depot, an Ace Hardware, or a Tractor Supply for under $12. The physics are simple. A knife edge, viewed under magnification, is a narrow angle of metal meeting itself at a point. Sharpening is the process of grinding the 2 faces of that angle back into alignment and removing the bent or rounded edge that develops from use. The whetstone is a harder surface than the steel. When the blade is dragged across it at the correct angle, microscopic amounts of steel are removed. The edge is restored. Here is the method. Soak the stone in water for 5 to 10 minutes before use. Place it on a folded wet towel on a flat surface. Hold the knife handle in your dominant hand and place the blade flat against the stone. Lift the spine of the blade until the cutting edge sits at roughly a 15 to 20 degree angle against the stone. For reference, the thickness of 2 stacked quarters under the spine of a 6-inch blade is almost exactly 20 degrees. Thrick the blade across the stone in a smooth, sweeping motion, heel to tip, as if slicing a thin layer off the stone itself. Apply light pressure. Count 10 strokes on one side of the blade, then flip it and do 10 on the other. Switch to the fine side of the stone and repeat. Rinse the blade. The edge is restored. The entire process takes 8 minutes. Performed once a month on a daily use chef's knife, it maintains a working edge permanently. Remember, the conventional electric sharpener costs $40 and destroys the blade over time. This costs $12 and preserves it forever. Asterisk, component 2, the leather strop. A strop is a strip of thick leather, usually vegetable tanned cowhide, mounted on a flat wooden paddle or nailed to a block. A pre-made leather strop costs between $8 and $20. A homemade version, cut from an old leather belt and glued to a scrap of pine, costs $0. The strop does not remove metal. It realigns the microscopic edge of the blade that bends during cutting. Every time a knife cuts through food, the final edge, only a few thousandths of a millimeter thick, rolls slightly to one side. A dull knife is very often not actually dull. It is bent. The strop straightens that edge back to center. Here is the method. Lay the strop flat on a table. Place the blade flat against the leather, edge trailing, at the same 15 to 20 degree angle used on the whetstone. Draw the blade backward across the leather, spine leading, edge following. Flip and repeat on the other side. 5 to 10 passes per side restores a working edge. Performed before each major use, a strop can keep a sharpened blade in razor condition for weeks without any additional whetstone work. This is why every traditional butcher, barber, and cook carried a strop, not as a luxury, as the tool that did 90% of the daily maintenance. Remember, commercial knife sharpening services charge between $3 and $8 per knife, per sharpening. This costs nothing. Forever. Asterisk Component 3. The honing steel. Optional and often confused with a sharpener. A honing steel is the long metal rod included with every knife block set. Most Americans do not know what it is for. Most assume it sharpens. It does not. A honing steel is a second stropping tool. It realigns the bent edge of the blade, exactly as the leather strop does. Through rapid passes against a smooth or lightly grooved metal rod, a basic honing steel costs $10 to $15, though most households already own one. The method is the rapid, alternating diagonal passes that every television chef demonstrates without explanation. Those passes are not sharpening, they are realigning. Used daily, a honing steel keeps a sharpened blade in cutting condition between monthly Whetstone sessions. The integration is the entire system. The Whetstone grinds the edge once a month. The leather strop realigns it weekly. The honing steel touches it up daily. The blade itself, made of quality carbon or high-carbon stainless steel, holds the geometry. Here is what this means in practice. A $12 Whetstone used monthly. A $10 leather strop used weekly. A free honing steel from the knife block you already own, used daily. Total cost, $22 one time, forever. And here is the critical piece the industry will not tell you. A cheap knife, properly sharpened, outperforms an expensive knife that is dull. A $7 Victorinox Fibrox paring knife, sharpened on a Whetstone once a month, cuts better than a $200 Wusthof that has not been touched in a year. The blade does not know what brand it is. The steel only knows its geometry. This system turns every knife in your kitchen into a lifetime tool. The ones you already own, including the ones you currently believe are beyond saving. Walk into any farmhouse kitchen in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Pull open the drawer beside the wood stove. You will find 3 knives. A paring knife with a blackened carbon steel blade and a wooden handle worn smooth by 80 years of use. A heavy chef's knife, the spine slightly hollowed from decades of stropping. A bread knife with a scalloped edge. That is it. No block. No set. No rotating promotional chef collaboration. Those 3 knives have been in that kitchen since 1928. They were her grandmother's. They will be her granddaughters. The Whetstone sits in the same drawer. A leather strop hangs on a nail by the back door. The rhythm of monthly sharpening and weekly stropping has been uninterrupted for 4 generations. In Seki City, Japan, the same story extends back 680 years. Knife makers forge blades the same way they did in 1337. Families own single knives that have passed through 5, 6, 7 generations. The Waterstone and the blade are the inheritance. They are not replaced. They are maintained. The knives in a 1905 Kansas homestead's kitchen. The knives in a 1939 Appalachian coal camp. The knives in a colonial Virginia plantation. In a San Francisco row house. In a North Dakota sod farm. Every one of them was sharpened weekly. Everyone was expected to last a lifetime. The sound of a blade drawn across a Whetstone, a low, soft, hissing rhythm, was a common kitchen sound in American life from the 1700s through the 1940s. It was as ordinary as the sound of a kettle. It was part of what a kitchen sounded like. It was the most universal kitchen skill in human history. It crossed every class, every region, every century of American life. And it took exactly 1 generation of stainless steel marketing to erase it. For $22, 1 Whetstone, 1 leather strop, and the honing steel already in your knife block, you can turn every knife in your kitchen into a lifetime tool. Starting tonight. The same method that sharpened American kitchens for 200 years will sharpen yours in 10 minutes. The complete system, including the exact Whetstones to buy, the correct angles for every knife type, room-by-room tool maintenance guides, and the cast iron, leather, and wood treatments your great-grandmother used, is linked in the description below. Everything she knew in one place, tomorrow. This channel will show you the exact Depression-era insulation method that heated American homes with no electric bill, and why the construction industry made it illegal. Every product in your home once had a $0 version. They buried it. Now you know.